I want to teach you about the importance of the 40 days after you have a baby postpartum for rest and rejuvenation and bonding with your child. When I worked in the hospital in labor and delivery, we would send women home with minimum education of how they're supposed to take care of a child. And some of the women were lucky enough to have people to help them, like their family or their mother or their husband, but many aren't. And I was one of them that really didn't have any support with my children, at least with the first child. I also wanted to note that in the clinic, you may go see your doctor occasionally, but they're just looking at the medical side of things, and they're not really talking to you about what's going on with you emotionally and spiritually after you bring a child into this planet. And also, how are you creating a magical child or a connected child or a child that feels bonded when you're at home, right when you get home from the hospital, which is the most critical time for bonding. And it's missed by the medical association. So in my particular case, I'm going to use myself as an example. The first baby I had was at home. My husband returned to work, and my mother didn't help me, and neither did any of his family for a long period. And I felt isolated. I felt alone. I felt scared. I felt antsy, and I didn't know why. And I wasn't necessarily depressed, but it was overwhelming taking care of my child for the first time. And I had training in it. That's I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work with clients all the time, and I was overwhelmed myself. So the second time I did a little bit more research, and I wanted to have a totally different experience. So I studied Ayurvedic medicine, and I looked at the way that they approach the 40 days after birth, and it's completely different. And what they recommend is you do not leave the house for 40 days. You stay with the baby in bed, breastfeeding, bonding. You don't let the baby 9 feet away from your auric field. So basically, you're not handing the baby off to anyone for a long period of time to be taken care of. And you're resting and you're sleeping and you eat carbohydrates and fats in order to produce more milk with specific herbs. I can't tell you the difference I felt by doing this. And I found with my research, and it makes so much sense, that the 40 days after giving birth equal the next 40 days of your life health-wise. Meaning that if you take 40 days to rest and bond with your child after you give birth and don't take the baby out and too much stimulation, and you just are with your child if you can, you will recover in 5 to 7 months fully and have your energy back. But if you don't, if you go through exhaustion and you take the baby out and you're letting a baby see too many things and you have to return to work and all of these things that come up and you're trying to do too much in that 40 days, you will likely feel sick and depleted for up to 20 years. Some sources say 40 years. And it makes a lot of sense because you're giving so much energy to the child. You've given so much energy away by producing a child that you really need that time just to rest and rejuvenate in order to build your own energy up and in order to bond with the child. In tribal cultures, they wear their child on them for the first 6 months. And then when the child can start to walk or not walk, crawl and move around, they no longer hold the child at that level, at the level of the face. They like to have the child high at the level of the face in order for the baby to feel like it's a part of the tribe. This is an ancient cultural way of being. And then when the child was older, they'd let the child be on its own, and it becomes a more parent-centered environment. And we have it all wrong. We usually sleep away from our children. We don't hold them close to us all the time. We put them in a buggy or a carriage or a stroller that separates them from our bodies. And then when they're older, we tend to helicopter them. So in ancient cultures, they did the opposite. In the beginning, they would always have the baby on them, on their skin, making them feel safe, calming their nervous system and calming their own nervous system, and really getting them comfortable with being around people and knowing that they're in the world now. And then when they were able to walk, they didn't helicopter the child. They didn't worry about the child. They let the child just play and be a part of the adult centered activities so that they learned what the world was like. And this is all in my book. And everything around bonding, the postpartum period, specific recipes you can use, the reasons why this is beneficial, why you feel antsy after birth, the details of the benefits that it does for your child and for your well-being for the long term, and exactly what it does for the brain and the development of creating a magical and brilliant child is what you want to do. I mean, creating a child is like starting a company, writing a book. It's an entire creation. You can find more of this at mysticalmotherhood.com. You can call me or write me and ask me questions. You can subscribe. And you can purchase Mystical Motherhood now and available on Amazon. Please share this video if you found it helpful.